Hey, pop the hood.
Pop the hood?
Pop the hood.
Hey, close the door.
Previously on the Subaru motor swap, I started the daunting process of disconnecting and removing both engines, the EJ251 and the EZ30D. This process took a while and required the removal of the interior for the motor swap, as I needed a lot of pieces from the donor car. I ended the last video by performing small maintenance items on the 6-cylinder engine before it's ready for the installation process. But there's a whole lot more work to go, so let's jump into this video. So if you're here to check out just the motor swap or want to resume with the installation of that, I am going to put a time sample right here to let you know where to skip forward to. So if you're here to follow along with your swap, buckle up, because this is where the information gets heavy. Okay. There is a playlist labeled Baja Stuff, and in that playlist have like disassembly of the radio, disassembly of the switches, so all of that stuff is already on the channel. So I'm going to skip over that and we're going to get to the big disassembly of the pulling the whole dash out. As is Subaru tradition, all the bolts are hidden. There it is. You can see your Phillips head right there and there. But you got to remove that, and to get to that you got to remove that, and to get to that you got to remove that. But that's connected into that. Remove everything. All right. Airbag has got to come out, so that bolt, that bolt, that bolt, and I thought there was one more. Huh. Okay, yep, I lied. 1, 2, and 3. Ding ding. Once you guys have removed every single piece of hardware that you can find attached to the dash, you'll find what's holding it on are a couple connectors. So there's 2 white ones that are hiding on the steering column, and then there's that big white one right there. It's actually got a screw attachment for it. So once you undo 10mm bolt, pull that blue harness, pull these 2 white harnesses down there, and then I forgot about that one. There's a little connector right there, and the dashboard is free. So you can pull your PCM out, or at least pull it away from its mount. There's a metal plate that covers that. Remove that plate, and you can remove, this is the PCM holder. PCM holder comes out. So this is a case where I'm probably going to keep the Baja's heater core, because that is horrible. Anyways, push that through and you can get that heater core out once everything's disconnected. So we're coming up on the next phase of my plan. I mean, like, what do you guys make of that? What madness is this? So actually, this is the steering column for the Baja, and there's a noticeable exception that the Outback has the rear wiper and rear squirter, and this one does not. So instead of taking the clock spring apart, which I found with this one by disconnecting the wheel and all that stuff, you don't actually have to take the wheel off, just the airbag. And then I tape the wheel in place so that it won't move. And I'm going to disconnect that steering column slip it in right inside, because the racks are the same. And that lighting's gonna be horrible, but you're gonna bolt in just like that, no problem. Real quick, once you remove your rear harness, you can see I cut mine up there, giving it a lot of space. The Outback has these side impact airbag sensors that your Baja does not have. These sensors are mounted right inside there. Actually, you might be able to see right there. Right in there. Yeah. So you'll have to move those side impact airbag sensors over to your Baja. That is necessary for your safety restraint system, and you're going to get a code if you do not bring those over. The connectors themselves are a little annoying. You just have to basically push down and then pull out. Kind of like the theme of the rest of the sensors. Inverted Torx. I used a 10mm on this and it didn't break it, but it's supposed to be inverted Torx bolt to hold this airbag sensor in. And since I have to take the door cards off because they have different connectors, I'll have to switch the rear door harnesses. I don't think they're much different, but they're different connectors, so I might as well just take the door panels off and see what's going on into there. Alright, so here I got the Outback harness, and literally you can go wire by wire. They're like exactly the same. As far as I can tell, everything is gonna plug in exactly the same. Like, the only difference that I can tell are these plugs right here. Like, it's extremely necessary since these harnesses plug in different, but on your swap you might just be able to chop off these wires and solder on this one. Save you a little bit of time of pulling the door cards off, because literally they're identical except for one wire location. So the front door harness is interchangeable by itself. It's plug and play. You don't have to do anything. But the real problem comes from keys. So using the Outback key obviously will work with that ignition cylinder, but it won't unlock your doors. So if you want a 100% perfect swap, you're going to have to open your doors and swap out the lock cylinders at the least. But I'm already at my wit's end with this job, so I'm just gonna keep both keys on the same ring. One key to the ignition and one key to unlock the doors. Hope that's not gonna interfere with the security system. Probably not, but I guess we'll find out. Like I say, I'll let you guys know. I'm the guinea pig here. So this is gonna be arguably the worst part of your whole swap. I think I mentioned that a couple times of trying to merge the wire harnesses. The Outback just goes, its wire harness just goes all the way back to a bunch of different connectors, and your Baja has what's called a 151 connector, and it's a single connector that runs the whole rear of the car, and we're gonna have to figure out which wires are no longer needed and which ones have to be separated out, because for the Baja we do have the rear cargo light, and I actually bought a new relay and a new harness, and I'm gonna run that cargo light to an auxiliary switch. So that'll take care of my one problem and just snip those wires off. There are other wires that we'll have to figure out. Obviously the Outback had the rear windshield wipers and the rear squirters. Also the turn signals were different. You can see that the Outback has individual turn signal and brake lights and running lights, where the Baja just has two lights, brake and turn signal in one. Another shout out to Brucey. You know, I'm just this guy has helped me out so much by pioneering the way through this swap. This is the bright light trailer harness. It takes 3 signals, your turn and your brake and your stop, and converts them to 2. So basically this little block right here is like $50, and it'll take your turn signals and combine them, so you won't have to mess with any diodes or repinning. Basically, you just solder your turn signals to the two harnesses together into this guy, and that'll take care of all your problems, because those color coordinate too, as well as your rear door ajar for your dash. Those wires are all the same. I'm in the middle of looking at this plug right here to see if those wires are all the same. Otherwise, we have our diagrams for the fuel pump, the fuel sending level unit, all that. So we'll have to correspond between which colored wires go to which. They are slightly different, as well as the charcoal canister. Depending if you're using a sedan or a wagon for your H6 swap, or your Baja is from 2004 or 5 or 6, you're probably going to have a little bit of play in there. Thing that I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to be soldering, as much as that would annoy a lot of you guys. They're copper tinned, non-insulated butt connectors. So that extra copper lining on the inside is going to make for way better connectivity. Soldering is a lot more work. It is a better job, but I've also got these double-walled heat shrink connectors. So get yourself a good pair of wire strippers, some really good butt connectors, and some really good heat shrink tubes, and it's close enough to soldering. This connector is the same on my Baja and the H6 Outbacks. I got a picture on my phone because I drug the Outback out the other day. Took the Outback out to pasture and shot it, burned it down, hate it. But it appears that those wires right there are corresponding, so we can just match those ones up with a harness. So I've already got started a little bit. ABS wires are already done. These are the door ajar switches on the cluster. This is the main body ground. So we're just gonna match up those ones over there. Then we'll tackle turn signals, I think. These guys right here, these twisty twos, those are for the rear tweeters in the back of the Outback wagon. So we can get rid of those. If you want to keep your Baja dash, your best bet is to change the harness out too. I found subtle differences between the two dashes when it comes down to just wire placement. For example, full pins here and different pins there. For example, the H6 Outback has this little extra sensor right here that your Baja dash does not. So the Outback dash was trashed on my donor car, so I'm going to swap everything over to Baja dashboard, and because it would match the seats and the door cards anyways. So it's just another freaking annoyance. But only 2 plugs go into the actual fuse block, and those are the ones you need to remove because those run parallel to the outside. So once you pull those 2 plugs, you can see everything right there, and one in the rocker panel are the ones that go through the A-pillar and out that way. Those disconnected, and you pull those through and reroute them on the Baja. But yeah, you don't need to disassemble the whole fuse box. It's just those 2 plugs down there. Keep everything labeled, and reassembly is much easier. I have to take this brake pedal because that's an automatic. The H6 has longer cables than the Baja does, so I had to take the cruise control and the throttle cable from the H6. Power steering lines, nabbed those because the power steering is different. Okay, so this might be the last update for the instructional purposes video for anyone that's following along. I've been following diagrams and reaching out and checking other diagrams, and it turns out there's some PDFs out there that are completely wrong. You can see on Brucey's channel too that there's wrong diagrams out there compared to your vehicle, or maybe I'm just dumb, but I'm not sure how much help I can be for you guys following along doing your own builds, because for example, there are so many red and black and black with red stripe wires. I had to do a lot of trial and error to make this work right. Here's a good example of it. So that red and black wire, which is connected to your R151 connector, turned it out for my running lights, my license plate light, my tailgate lights, I guess, is the exact same shade as this wire, and I have no clue what it does. But I originally tried connecting the two, and it was actually knocking out fuses when the two from the H6 harness touched each other, because originally I thought I would just put them both together, which is probably dumb. But separated them in trial and error until I figured out that yes, the black with red stripe from the 151 connector plus one of these black with red stripes was the running lights. And then again for the turn signals, this guy right here, you can actually see that I cut that one off because this green and black wire and this green and black wire are for emissions or drainage. Green and black, I'm not sure which one. But on the H6 Outback, they're also green with black stripe, which is horrible. Turn signal and emissions or fuel or something like that. My right turn signal was blue, yet the third brake light is blue, and the third brake light also has blue and white that are also thick wires, and blue and red, which are also thick wires. But I had to isolate this one all the way from the tail light back, or from the connectors that go up in there, and follow it all the way down to figure out that it is indeed the turn signal, because it's a different color for different Bajas. So I've still got about 5 wires that I cannot figure out what the hell they do. I can tell you, though, I actually took a picture of it, the yellow with green and the green with yellow, and there's one more in there that is just the rear windshield wiper motor for the Outback. And then as far as this one goes, there are certain colored wires for your Baja Actives, your active sports lights, because that underneath the bed trim there is a plug for your active sports lights that were available for some Bajas. So some of these wires are probably for that, and I've actually got 3 or 4 wires in the H6 harness that I don't know what they do yet. But the ABS pump, I reused the Baja pump instead of the H6 pump, so perhaps that's why I'm getting the ABS code, and I'm not exactly sure why. Once I get a scan tool, and maybe we'll see what those codes actually are. Aside from the axles have to stay the same with the car, but you do not have to change the hubs. The spline count on the axles is the same, which is really nice actually. The exhaust, I definitely have clips in there. Your Outback exhaust is like 7 inches longer, so you're gonna have to cut the tail shaft off of the Outback and your H6, and you'll have to use the front H6 headers and the back half of the exhaust from your Baja to make that work. Honestly, at this point, I'm just gonna put everything together because it is week number 2. Actually, week number 2 is over. Had to go back to work, so I only was able to put in 3 days for this week. I'm like 2 days into the wiring itself, and the wiring's not done. It's not perfect. I guess when it comes down to that, you guys may have to look into a wiring specialist. Like I said, I did my best. I poured over diagrams. I reached out to the community, and there's not a whole lot you can really do. It's just trace the wires back and try to match them up best you can. So now it's just time to reassemble it. I might leave just the driver's seat and the passenger seat in for now and leave the floor all exposed for tackling that harness later. But I need to get something drivable. So let's go ahead and fast forward to that.
place of the cargo light, the Outback has its own switch wired to the front windshield wiper heating element. As this switch is specific to the Outback harness, I figured I would swap out the windshields as well. It turns out that glass removal from an old vehicle is a very difficult task to accomplish, even by professionals. As such, there was no guarantee to remove the glass still intact. Unfortunately, both the Baja and the heated glass from the Outback cracked under removal, and I will need to order a new windshield. This is just another setback in a long list of setbacks when it comes to motor swaps.
Stupid heavy.
Yeah.
Day 7, I think. If you're considering doing this swap, don't do it. See if you can pay someone else to do it. No, I'm just playing. I think I'm coming up on 80 hours. I think I've got about 80 hours in the swap so far, and I still need to swap out the rear ends and finish the wire harness merge. Put the dash back on, and then reinstall the interior and all the body panels. It's not horrible, but I'm not gonna make my deadline. I was really hoping I could push through to get this done in 9 days before I have to go back to work, and that's not gonna pan out. Not to mention that I got an axle over there on the Outback that is rust welded together. I went through a whole bottle of propane. I went through my air hammers, my normal hammers, beat the crap out of it, and it still would not remove. So I had to order two OEM used axles off of eBay, and those won't get here until Wednesday. Not only that, but this is the drive shaft out of the Outback, and you're not gonna be able to see this, but it's got hard spots in the drive shaft. And those spider gears are, those needle bearings are a little messed up, so technically it's time for a drive shaft. I know there's guys on YouTube who have made these serviceable and added universal U-joints to them, but I've also heard this split reviews of that being recommended or not. So I might just try to buy an OEM drive shaft from a 2004 H6. They have different part numbers, but apparently they're interchangeable, so I might have to buy a new drive shaft for another $650. All things considered, it's not bad. I think we're pretty much finished with the Outback. I'm gonna jump on that wire harness merge today. Hopefully get the rear end installed. And then we might actually start up the H6 for the first time. So arguably the worst part in the swap is the wiring. There's 28 wires in the Baja, 35 wires in the Outback that have to be merged together. I'm hoping it'll be pretty straightforward because you can actually see what component has what colored wire, and I have a couple wire diagrams printed off. But anywho, let's go. Ah. Before I get too far, I actually want to try to test start it. I've got all the engine put in, all hooked up as far as I know. I'm still messing with the rear wire harness. I'm actually having a lot of trouble getting turn signals and taillights to work. But I believe the whole fuel system is ready to rock and roll. So basically, I kind of want to just see if everything's gonna work in general. God forbid I have to like pull the motor or something again. Kind of an added benefit for you guys. It's got open exhaust. So if anyone was curious what this motor would sound like without any exhaust on it whatsoever, I guess you're about to find out. That doesn't sound good. Never mind. That's a new noise. See, I turned the key. I get worried in. It's just the damn windshield wipers. I totally scared myself. H6 test fire. Attempt number 2. It's live!
Unfortunately, this motor swap is a little less than perfect. I've still got about 5 wires that I could not figure out what they do before running out of time. Because of this, the check engine light comes on right away once the codes have been reset. I believe this is because of a sensor, and so far has not conflicted with the system's performance. As of yet anyways. Also, I haven't had a chance to finish installing all the interior pieces. And another small gripe I have is that you need to keep the Outback's front seats because of the internal airbags. Eventually, these will be reupholstered back into black to match the rest of the car. Another small detail is that I tried to swap out the needles and gauge faces to retain the unique Baja colors. This ended up ruining the gauges. I also found that the H6 computer sends a different tach signal so the RPMs don't read correctly using another Baja gauge cluster. You definitely need H6 gauges, but it's kind of funny at the moment that it doesn't read properly anyways. Also, I was able to wire the pass-through door switch to the Outback's rear hatch ajar signal, which I thought was pretty cool. Overall, the benefits outweigh the slight issues I have, and I'm pretty pleased with the way things turned out. Anyways, this is Jake with Adventure GT, and I'll catch you later.